With apologies to Charles Dickens, my topic for today is A Tale of Two Exams. And Dickens' famous opening line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," is strangely appropriate for my story as well. So let me start my story at the end with my final year exams at the University of Moratuwa. Because of my previous year's results and based on how classes were calculated at that time, I knew precisely how many marks I needed in my final year exam to graduate with a first class. And I used this knowledge very precisely to decide not only which subjects to revise, but which topic areas within the subject to focus on. So if there was something I was struggling with, I needed to decide, can I just ignore this and avoid the question on this area and score enough from the other areas, or do I need to master this? So was my strategy successful? Well, it depends on what you mean by success. I did graduate with first class honors, so based on the goals I set for myself, you could say I was successful. But is this what we want from our engineers, that they sort of scheme their way around the assessment, or would we rather that they master all the areas that they're supposed to be learning? Now you might be wondering, so is this the best of times or is this the worst of times? Actually, it was a bad time in terms of learning, not for the sake of learning, not for the sake of mastery, but just to pass the assessment. But the worst example of that would actually be the A-level exam. See, with the university first classes, it doesn't matter how many people score that mark, everybody who scores that mark would get a first class. But with A-levels, so again, it wasn't on mastering the subject, it was about mastering how to score points in the exam. But I didn't have that luxury of knowing that if I scored this much, it would be enough. Because being a competitive exam, what university place I got would depend on what A-level results the others got as well, right? So I just had to try to get as many marks as possible. And it's the same thing with anybody sitting the A-level exam who is interested in higher studies at least. So now you might be wondering, so all right, this is all very unpleasant maybe, but this is how exams are. What was the good times of the story? So for the good times, we have to go a little bit back, maybe year 7, year 8, somewhere like that in school. And I remember my mother used to come and remind me, Sifan, it's exams next week, or why aren't you studying, why aren't you revising, things like that. And I used to reply, Mom, that defeats the point of the exam. When we have the term tests, and when I get my marks, that tells me what are the subjects I'm strong in and what are the subjects that I need to put more effort to master to catch up. Not because scoring marks on the exam is the goal, but mastering the things they're teaching us is the goal. Back then I naively believed that all the things they were teaching us in school were useful, were necessary. And that discrepancy is a topic for another video, but back then I did believe it. I did want to master everything, and then exams for me was a feedback on how I was doing and what I needed to improve on. And when you know a child who's sitting for an exam, how do you want them to use this exam? Or how do you want them to prepare for this exam? Do you want it to be the way I did my finals, where it doesn't matter about mastering the subject, it doesn't matter if you forget everything the day after the exam, the only thing that matters is doing well on the exam? Or is it how it was when I was in school without all this competitive pressure or before all the competitive pressure of the A-levels, where it was about learning where you needed to improve on? What do you think?